Thanks so much. Welcome to this session tonight on career decision making, and is specifically focused on more interactive tools and tips and techniques. My name is Jody Hammer, and I'll be your host today. I work actually as the career services specialist with NPCA's Global Reentry Program. So it's always a pleasure to be here with you on Monday evenings to do the live recordings for these sessions. And just to let you know, we are actually moving in the direction where Fridays will now be more of a professional development theme oftentimes. So you can catch us on the Friday afternoon at 1 p.m. We're going to be having a new slot time-wise. So hopefully you can catch us for those as well, in addition to our podcast on Wednesdays at the standard 12 p.m. Okay, so tonight, we are going to talk about, as I said, career decision making and just, tips, techniques, tools. I'm sharing this slide, which I actually had utilized in a former presentation that I give in a former talk, webinar, if you will. And I put that on there because oftentimes I feel like people who are unsure of what they want to do feel really bad about it. They feel like, oh, there's something, wrong with them. They should know. Everyone else seems to know what they want to do. I don't. What's wrong with me? Things like that. And I just want to reassure you that, it is completely normal to change careers and to want to change careers multiple times in your life. So gone are the days, largely that is, of, where our grandparents, for example, may have worked one job, right, for one employer. Or certainly one career, maybe two different employers, right? Those days are gone. Most people change jobs very frequently, or more frequently at least. And so it's okay to be uncertain and to not know. And, maybe you made a decision to go into a field and you just realized for whatever reason, right, it's just not right for you. And that's okay. But what you need to do is think about, okay, so what do I want to do? And how can I tap into and gain insight into maybe careers and things that might be good for me, good options, right? Maybe you have the options that you think you want to do, and it really comes down to really jumping in and doing the research. But there's also that aspect of, would I be good at this? What type of person excels at this kind of job? So that's what we're going to talk about a little bit tonight, kind of more of some interactive, thoughts on really starting at the basics, like the values identification, and kind of seeing what are those core values that really are important for you, that it sincerely helps, right? It truly helps if your career is in line with those. If you're doing a job that's not in line with some of your core values, that's really tough. And that's where people oftentimes get either burned out or, just end up quitting and wanting to find something else. So just reassuring you of that before we start here. And please don't shit on yourself. It's, decisions that we made, we learn. I'm a big proponent of, we learn the most from our mistakes, right? From failure, from mistakes. And they can be excellent learning tools if we listen to it and if we incorporate changes based on that, so that next time it's not going to happen that way. So it's all about learning, and we are all subjects, and we're all we're all learning all the time. So great. Obviously, if you can pursue your passion area, that gets you more motivated. It gets you, and whatever that is. I mean, it's different for every person. Mine is career, like working with, I love working with you all. You're my favorite population because you're RPCVs, right? You're returned Peace Corps volunteers. I'm a returned Peace Corps volunteer. I know that experience. I understand that experience and that passion that people have and that dedication, and that, I love working with this population because you're great people. And so I feel very fortunate. I found my niche and have been able to stay in it for a very long time, right? First at Peace Corps headquarters, and now here at NPCA, helping folks with both the evacuation, global evacuation, but now also, going forward and helping others as well. And, wherever you are in your career. So I'm excited to be here, and I found my passion, and I hope that you find yours as well and can really dive in. So this is just one kind of, it shows the fundamentals of, a successful, like kind of career, a successful career, right? Gaining success in your career, right? Like, or finding, I guess it is more really kind of finding, your right niche as well, right? So this is kind of the big, the big picture, right? It is hard work. Absolutely. You need to work hard at whatever job you have, but you also do need to work hard at finding a job that does fit your own criteria and what you're looking for and what will bring you feelings of, gratification and success and things like that, because that all weighs into your overall career. Okay. Integrity, of course. And I think RPCVs, I would definitely say RPCVs are, have this down, absolutely. Learning, the attitude of continuing to learn, right? We're all learning, regardless of what level you go into in an organization. You're going to be learning. Hopefully, if you're not learning in it, then it's either not the right fit or you don't like it, right? Or maybe you'll be bored because you already know it and you're just, you're not happy with it. So all of those things are important, as well as teamwork, right? Teamwork is a very important part, working with your team in whatever your organizations are, right? There may be challenges, I'm sure, and you're going to probably have experiences that are tough, teamwork experiences where you come out and you gain something from it though, right? You learned what worked or what didn't work with this particular person, right? And what you need to do in the future, for similar situations and things like that. So you always, you're always learning. Yeah, absolutely. Networking. And I always am I feel like I'm preaching on networking, right? Network, network, network. That's what you need to do. And, it is true, right? Networking is a huge way of hearing about your future opportunities, right? A majority of jobs, there's many different figures, you can, quote, but it's, upwards of, anywhere from like 65 to 80% of jobs are filled through networking, right? It doesn't mean you get the job if you're not, qualified. You still have to be able, be qualified and, describe those qualifications in your interview. But if you can get on that short list right away, you're competent, you're hard workers, you have all these other traits that are great. You're going to do great in the interview. It's more of a problem usually of not making that search or not making it to the point where they're going to actually interview you. So networking is really key. And if you're not on LinkedIn, I would absolutely encourage you to get on LinkedIn. It is the single biggest networking opportunity. There's like 60 plus million people on it in the world. It's big beyond even just the States, right? And you can do searches to learn about careers, right? Even if you don't, use it as much in certain ways, right? Where you're going to be like connecting with or whatever people, you can look at different profiles, look up the profile of somebody that you might aspire to be. Like, wow, that sounds like a really interesting job. I should search and see what I can find on LinkedIn. And chances are you'll find that person and their profile and learn more about what was their path. And that can help you as you think about planning your own. So it is really important. All of these things, as I said. So we're going to go ahead. Jennifer, so good to see you here. Thank you for being here tonight. This is just a sample, right, model of career decision-making, right? There's many different models that are out there. I like this one because I feel like it's simple enough, right? I mean, you start with assessing your interests and your skills, your attributes, and your values. And that's really where we're going to be focusing more tonight, okay? We'll talk about a little bit of the other things as well, but we're really going to be focusing largely on that first part, right? And then researching, the fields of interest or things that come up as suggestions based on maybe what your personality type is or your MBTI, your Myers-Briggs, or other kinds of, maybe assessments that you've done on personality and, trait types of assessments. So researching different fields, right? A lot of the research involves talking to people, right? Networking. If you're interested in learning about a field, what's the best way to gain inside information on that field? Talking to insiders, right? talk to people who do it. So try to reach out and see if you can, figure out somebody who might know somebody. When you're on LinkedIn, do your search, your little search where you can put, former company, Peace Corps. As I always say to people, tap into your Peace Corps network first. And the easiest way to do that is put former employer and then Peace Corps, and then current employer or industry or whatever, fill in the blank. Creative associates, whatever the company's name is, or the industry or whatever. And you're going to get people who come up on that, right? They're not going to always, sometimes they'll be first contacts where you're like, oh, I didn't realize they were working at this company. Great. But other times it'll be somebody who's not a contact, and you can actually reach out and invite them. And in that, your family, right? Peace Corps is a family. So talk about the easiest way to connect, right? You reach out to them with an invite, and you don't just choose the generic, I'd like to add you to my professional network, because that sounds very generic, right? I don't really add people when it's that, because I just don't have time to figure out, are they someone that I actually know from some circle, or is it some spam, someone who's going to try to whatever, get into my account. So you do the personalized, and you have, like, I don't know, it might be 300 characters, whatever, but you can put, hi, I'm a fellow RPCV, having served in Ecuador, new to the blah, blah, blah field, and, or, new to the area in Boston and looking to connect with people working in the XYZ. I'd love to connect with you professionally. That, or even shorter, you could have I'm an RPCV, having served in Ecuador, whatever, right? Recently moved to Cincinnati, would love to connect with you professionally, period. That's it, right? Because they're going to then accept it or not. If they don't accept it, please don't be offended. It very rarely is because they're making a conscious effort to exclude you. It's much more probable that they're just not in the habit of checking their LinkedIn very frequently. They have a lot on their plate or whatever. They don't check it, enough or whatnot. So it's very rarely that it's an intentional one, right? But when they do, and oftentimes they will respond, and they'll connect with you. They'll just push the connect button. Well, that's great, because then they've connected with you, right? So you can reply with no limitations of, how long. Don't make it terribly long, but you can then say, thanks so much for connecting with me. It's so great to meet other RPCVs, I'm currently conducting a job search in the research and development area. And as such, looking to connect with people and hear more about their own experience. Wondering if you might have 15, 20 minutes of your time at your convenience to chat about your own experience and any tips or advice you might have, period, right? A career chat, not an informational interview, a career chat. It's much shorter, it sounds, right? And you can, 15, 20 minutes, respect that time, at least offer to, honor. I'm not gonna go further into this because you can watch an entire session on this, but this is just what I'm saying is it involves the networking then, right? To learn more about things, right? You're focusing your career goals, right? Based on your experience, what have you liked? What haven't you liked? That's just as important as what your values and skills and attributes, right? It's very related, right? And then, you take action and you launch that job search, right? And you might be doing it very much like under the radar first. And we have a webinar actually on our website about doing a career search, kind of under the radar, right? You're not always going to be going, hey, I'm looking for a new job, especially if you're working in another job and you don't want to have that necessarily get out. So I like this model. But there are several, as I said. And then lastly, I'm going to show you this one here is more, the 5-step career development model, right? So assessment as the foundation, which we're going to talk a lot more about tonight. How can you assess what your strengths are, your weaknesses, your values, your all of those kinds of things, right? And then exploring the opportunities that are appropriate, for, or the careers, the types of jobs that are appropriate for that kind, your type of person, right? And then preparing your self, your your resume, right? Getting ready for that job search, right? And then implementing it, really starting to, make those decisions, right? Deciding on, okay, so what do I need to do to learn more about this, right? So that, and what do I need to do now that I have this information to really think about moving in that direction? Does it involve going back to school or getting a certification or something like that? All of those kinds of things, right? Factor in. And then ultimately making that decision. Okay, I have done my due diligence. I have, spent time with the assessment, the exploration, preparation, right? Implementation. I'm ready to launch. and make a decision. And this is what my decision is. And again, don't worry about it being like, oh, this has to be a lifetime decision, because it doesn't. It could be your career for the next 5 years, 10 years, you name it, and then or less. And you decide it's not for you and you move into another area. You just want to do your best, the best job you can to try to, figure out one that will be rewarding to you, right? But there's always change. So I want to stop here for a moment because I feel like I've been talking a lot, and I want to just ask you all, what questions do you have at this point about, so far, the, career decision making, getting started, the different models we've talked about? You're welcome to drop any of those questions into the chat box, and I'll be sure to answer all of them. Or address them. And alternatively, I think we have a small enough crew here tonight. You could, if you prefer, you could certainly unmute yourself and ask. Grace, did you have a question? It looks like it's maybe your mic is on. I don't know. Did you want to ask a question? Racine, you had your thumb up. Did you want to ask a question, or were you just agreeing? All right, so please just drop your questions, it's fine, into the chat box. And as we go through, we'll definitely answer as many of those as we can. I definitely like this to be as interactive as possible. So please do, share your own experiences too, is always great. Okay, thumbs up for agreement. Excellent. All right, Racine. So let's continue on then. We're going to do an activity, and I've done this activity once before, a long time ago. If you haven't done it before, I'm going to explain how it works. This is where you need your piece of paper. So if you don't have a piece of paper, and you can get one fairly easily, just any, like 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. The key is that it is pretty blank on both sides, because you're going to be writing on both sides. Okay. So if you grab that, I'll just take a moment for folks to be able to do that. And then I have a sample one here too that I'm going to actually fold up here, so you'll be able to see. So it's usually you fold it 5 times in half. I'm going to have you fold it 4 times just because of timing. I don't want to have you like leave off. I want you to be able to finish what we start and what we do here. So if you take your piece of paper, if everyone has that, take your piece of blank paper right here. Okay. Oh, if you can see this. Oh, you really can't with my background, but here you go. It's down here. I'm going to fold that in half from top to bottom. Put it like, with the long side going up the sides, like you would read a document. Okay. And you're going to just take the top and put it down equal to the bottom, and you're going to make a nice big crease. Crease it really well. Okay. There you go. So, that, and then take it again from the shorter sides, bring those together. So the short side to the short side, and make another really good crease. The better you can make that crease, the easier it's going to be for you later. Okay. Then you're going to take it another time here. You're going to fold it in half. And again, it becomes more and more difficult to crease it. But crease it really well is going to help you a lot. Okay. And then you'll probably have one that's about 2 inches by maybe 4 inches. I don't know if you can see this in front of me. There you go. Okay. And then we're going to do one more crease down. So the short end to the short end again. And that's it. We're only going to fold it 4 times, not 5. Okay. And you'll see why fairly soon. Okay. So once you get that done, if you can unfold your paper, okay, and you should have a paper, the 8.5 by 11 that shows, and it should have 4 rows and 4 columns. So it's a total of 16 squares versus the 32. If we would have folded it another time, it would have been the 32 that came out. But we're going to do 16. That's plenty for tonight. Okay. Do I need to stop for a minute, or is everyone ready to move on with this? And Danielle, if you can help in the chat box, if folks maybe have just come back, anyone that like had to go get it, maybe you can interact with them in the chat. But you, again, it'll look it'll just have the four by four, and it's going to be 16 squares. So now here's the fun part. On each of the squares on the one side, same side, right? You're going to work with side one first. And you're going to write one thing you want to do in your life, like before your life is over. What's one thing that you absolutely want to do or accomplish? Things like that. And I have a couple examples here for you. Things like get a master's degree, or have a child, or go skydiving. So it doesn't have to be, this does not have to be work related. Okay. This is in your whole like realm. What you're going to basically put down 16 different things that you want to do before you before you die. So in your lifetime. I should have thought ahead and had nice, fun music here for this part, but I'll just let you all work. And in case there are any folks who came back a little bit late from getting their paper, what we've done is just folded the paper, take an 8.5 by 11 paper, and the short sides, the top and the bottom, that is, fold those together so it's in half, make a big crease. Then again, take the short side to the short side, make another big crease. You do this 4 times, and you will end up, when you increase it really well, that helps. And then when you open it up, it's going to have it's going to have 16 squares. And then you're going to write in each of those squares, and don't think too much about this, just what comes to your mind, right? Don't like, is this right? Is this wrong? Just write it. If you think it, just write it down. And you're going to write, 16 things that you want to do before you die. And I have a couple examples on the page here, like go skydiving, or have a child, or, get a master's degree. These are all options, right?
I've got a question. Is it okay if I ask?
Sure, of course.
So I started writing down things that are not, don't have a beginning and end. So I see on your list, these are like goals to reach or activities to do, and mine are things like be healthy.
Okay.
Since I have never done this activity before,
Sure.
Are you asking me to think about like definitive things?
So yes, and for your be healthy, I think you're going to understand when we get to the next step in this, because your health is one aspect of, like, for the health one, it might be attain or keep my cholesterol below whatever. Like, it might, like, that's a specific that's related to health. Yeah. Or, maintain a body, whatever, is it BMI, whatever your definition of, health is, right? Good question. Thank you, Karen. Any other questions? You are welcome to unmute like Karen did. And I think everyone's working hard. That is great. As you do finish up, just so we have an idea of like how how long it's, how much longer we should allow. Why don't you just, I guess, raise your hand maybe if, under that feature, so we can just see. That's great, because I think the thumbs up and the clapping will disappear in like 30 seconds or a minute or something. So, and no hurry. We have. Ronnie's got his done. Thank you, Ronnie. And of course, the other thing is, this is something that, you can continue after the session as well, right? You don't feel pressure to have all 16 filled in right now. You might well decide to go back and do the 32 and then, like put what you have in and continue when you have more time, which is fine as well. We'll take another minute or so to just allow a little more time, and then okay, so I'm going to go ahead and, like I said, feel free to keep writing there. And I'm going to go to the step 4 actually on this, right? Just going to put it on here. And those of you who are already done, you can start doing this. What I want you to do is look back at each of the items you've written, the word you've written on the other side. And on the back side of that, I want you to write the first word that comes to your mind for those items. So for example, skydiving might be adventure. Don't worry about saying the same word twice at all. This is not a cover letter or something that you have to like, oh, think of synonyms. So it's not always the same. It's fine to have the same thing on it. The one, if you had on there, have a child, maybe that's family, right? It's just what does that like, what is that? Why is that there? What does that speak to you, right? So do that as much as you can, right? Just go back and take a few minutes to actually write down the first word that comes to mind. Don't censor yourself, just whatever it is, put it down. All right. So for those of you who didn't, as I said, didn't finish with the 16 on the one side, just go ahead at this point and flip it over and start doing this step here that's showing the looking at each square and writing the first word that comes to mind, for that item, skydiving, right? For example, it would be adventure maybe, or getting a master's might be education, something like that. Just the words that come. And a good example would be Karen's health, right? So if she had maintain whatever physical fitness or whatever she had on the one side, on the other side, what does that speak of? Health. So, and there might be more than one that speak to that, and that's absolutely fine. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask them at this point while we're taking this time to actually fill that out. Okay. Feel free to put questions either in the chat box or to, of course, just unmute yourself and ask that way. And as we'll discuss a little later, these results, what you came up with and the kind of words that are, on your paper on the back side are going to be instrumental in terms of taking you to another step of, an activity that I call 5 bold steps. It's actually using an activity that has been used for team building and values, vision kind of statements for, companies and such a lot. But we used it way back when I was in undergraduate, which was many moons ago, and worked in wellness and counseling and resume writing and such. And so with the wellness aspect, we incorporated this one, and it seemed to work really well. So I'll talk to you a little bit about that at the end and kind of leave you with some homework probably, since time goes so fast, right? All right. So and again, no pressure if you are, still, working on this. That's absolutely fine. You can finish it later, but you probably have at least a handful that are on there that, you might, notice some things. So I'd love to, while people are finishing up, those of you who are finished, or those who are almost finished or whatever, weigh in with this. What did you notice? Like, what do you notice about the words that are on the back, like where you put the activity or thing that you wanted to do before you right, in your lifetime, and then on the back those words, what did you notice? Anyone? Feel free to unmute or drop it in the chat box, your preference. Did anyone have any that were repeated, the same word multiple times?
I sure hope other people will talk too.
Yes, thank you, Karen. In the meantime.
So yeah, I found that some of these are sort of their values that I have, or generalized hopes.
Yep.
And I see somebody put something in the chat. So
Yep.
and that they kind of group together. That's
exactly.
All. At least somebody else can share too.
No, that's great. And Brian, thank you for sharing that. 4 of the same word, right? Repeated: physical fitness, health. That is absolutely what happens with this activity. And you are absolutely right, Karen, when you said the things that are on my back are values. That is the point of this this activity. It's a unique way. It's a way of values identification, and values identification is really an important part of thinking what you want to do next. Because as I was saying earlier, if you work in something that you don't believe in, or you have, moral or ethical, whatever issues with, chances are you're not going to be very happy, right? So it is really important to honor and recognize our values and the role that they play in finding a fulfilling career. And the first step in doing that is to identify. And so through this, this way of thinking about what are some things you want to do and things that are important to you, in your lifetime. And then, why are those important? What are they, what is the value basically? Without saying that, it comes out with a whole bunch of values. What did other people come out with? What kinds of values came out for you? What kinds of words were repeated more than once? And was it clear? So Jennifer, thank you. Health, a lot of health here tonight. That's great. Quality of life, exploration, all are important to you. Absolutely. That's
Yes, I have
great.
something.
Yeah.
So I just like the words like experience and exploration. And I think ultimately it's just like experiencing different aspects of life and those opportunities, whether it's getting a higher education or
Yeah.
climbing the tallest mountain,
Yep.
or like learning additional languages, which just increases my knowledge and awareness. Just so like exploration experiences.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And it could be also, knowledge or competence, or, just, yeah, understanding things like, yeah, absolutely. No, that's great. That's great. Thank you so much, Christine. I appreciate you sharing that.
Hey,
See, it
Jody.
isn't so bad, is it?
Hey, Jody.
Yeah, Ronnie.
One of the things that keeps coming to mind are qualitative statements. Just uh, as a goal-driven person, I want to do more and better. But that's a difficult thing to communicate, because if you show it on paper, well, I've done this, but I want to do it better. I don't necessarily know how to qualitate that. So anyway.
So within the very beginning, I missed the first word that you said. What was your word that was actually showing up?
It's qualitative. Yeah, I want to
Qualitative
do more and better.
and
The
more,
things
better,
I do, I want to
improvement.
do
Yep.
more and better. So
Well, and that's a great trait to have when you're, doing a job search, but also when you're like interviewing, right? And you talk about, I'm the kind of person who, strives to always do better. So I take where I've been and I'm proud of where I've been, but I always want to do better. And here's what I do to blah, 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 right? I mean, that's an example of how you can really incorporate that too. That's a great value to have, right? That always seeking to improve, yourself, your, everything, the conditions of whatever you're working for. So that's a great one. Great. Let's see. Racine came out with life expansion, expanding, growth. Yes, absolutely. Growth. Yeah, you have that growth mindset. You always want to, grow and develop and get better, kind of like what Ronnie was saying, really. Even. So that's wonderful. Good. Good. We've got some good things that have come in here. So how would you say this is? I mean, this we've really talked about relating to career development, right? You're going to look at your values and you're going to incorporate those in. So I'm going to move on, just because I want to really, honor the time, and go on there. And you could always continue this. Get in touch with me if you have questions, as well. You could always reach out to me, Danielle. If you can just dump my email in the chat box, that would be great. Thank you so much. And let's continue here. So many times people talk about the assessments you can do, right, to gain clarity on maybe what your, personality is, and what kinds of jobs are, good for people with your personality, things like that. And one of the biggest ones is the Myers-Briggs, right? That's one of the one that's out there now. That one does cost money, and there are some free versions, if you will, if that's an issue, right? But I liked this graphic here because if you take a moment, how many of you know what your Myers-Briggs is? Do you know? If you know, can you dump it into the chat box there? That would be great if you know what yours is. I just asked because chances are many of you have done this before. And if you have, you can look right, at your, at some of your, and see like what your, what your personality is. ISFP. All right, Danielle, great. Thank you. INTJ. Yes, I knew that, Ronnie. We talked about that, right? So Jennifer, you're an INFP. I am an ENFP. So we're very similar, except for the extrovert, which really means I recharge from being around people versus the introvert recharging from having alone time, right? Surprise, surprise, right? You couldn't tell that about my personality, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm pretty much a classic ENFP. So they don't say extreme. I got certified in this years ago, and you don't say I'm an extreme, but I'm a very clear. It's just I came out very clearly on the, like with the EI, the extrovert introvert. I came out at 30 of the extrovert, which is like the most you can have, right? Versus the most on the opposite side would be 30 on the I. So, but this just has a couple questions like, are you outwardly focused or inwardly focused, right? So there are some ways that you could get an idea of what you probably are without doing the formal test. I would probably encourage you to do one that I'm going to share here. That's called, it's the young trait one, which basically is like it's a free version of the Myers-Briggs. So I'm going to show you that here. And here's the MBTI charts. Like what's interesting is you have like personality, ENFP, INFP, all of the different kinds, right? And then it's, like the saying for you. So as an ENFP, giving life an extra squeeze. And like that's totally characteristic of the ENFPs, right? Just like go, 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 run, 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 always doing things, always running around. So and you can look at that and see if it makes sense for you, right? But then I liked this one that was the career-based personality, where it kind of showed a little more, because there's been a lot done. Like the MBTI has been related to, there's been research and stuff related to many different aspects, right? I mean, everything from like down to, career, right? What kind of career would be best for an ISTJ, to, partnering with which marriages would, what kind of MBTI, type are you going to be most successful with in a partnership? There's, and everything in between, right? There'll be some that will show, famous people who are the various different types. You can look all this up. Just do a Google search for like MBTI, famous people or whatever, and you'll get, the charts of, who is what and what might be like you and that kind of thing. So all that to say, they've done it for so many areas of your life. They've adapted it. So here you can see, for example, the ENFP, counseling, teaching, religion, or arts, right? That's my type, right? And I definitely do a lot of career focused counseling, right? And teaching, and have done that in the past. And like it's spot on for me. It's not always, but sometimes when you look at these charts, you can say, wow, I would have never thought of this job. Let me think about that, right? And go from there. There's other ones like strong Campbell interest inventory. There's one called Focus 2 careers that many times universities use certain ones, right, over other ones. But many times your university will let you take it free, even if you haven't been there for a while. Sometimes they have a time limit, but other times they invite you to take whatever advantage of that. So you could even check with those for some of the ones that cost, but you can get a pretty good idea too by some of the free versions, really, right? So let's go on and just look really quickly here. The Young Typology test is the one that I was mentioning. That is a free personality test. And it's based on, Carl Jung's and Isabel Briggs, who is the creator of the Myers-Briggs test, personality type theory. It's based on that. And you can see in this graphic, it has like, all the different, the different things, showing the different four letter combinations, right? So when you take this test, and it is free, like I said, the test is available at the bottom there. I put that on the screen there. If you go to humanmetrics.com, and you can even get in from there, the Young Typology test, right? It's the free one. you obtain your 4-letter, like I said, right, along with your strengths, your preferences, your different your description of your personality type, all of that. But you can also apply that, and they do have information on careers and occupations most suitable to people that score like that, in that way. The communication learning styles related, like, again, this is one that has been used in many different ways, right? And then, like I said, the famous people you can even get. So that's just one. 16 personalities is another. You can go on to the 16personalities.com website. Now, this one, I believe it's like $9, I want to say. Actually, you might be able to do the basic, but if you want more of the interpretation and the information. But notice how they have it here. It's like you have the analysts, right? And that's kind of that combination of the intuitive and the thinking. And so it's related to the Myers-Briggs. So you could even just look at their outcomes, like when you can get a lot of this online, these charts. And if you're an INTP or whatever, you can kind of look at, okay, so, and it has some of those, like architect, advocate, mediator, all those kinds of jobs that might use your strengths, right? Doesn't mean they're the only ones for you, certainly, at all, but it means that it might they might be good fits for you to think about, or some variation of that. So great. All right. And Racine, you were originally ESFJ, but you think it's an ENFJ. Okay. Yep. Great. Awesome. So some of the other free career aptitude assessments, there's the Keirsey temperament sorter, career explorer, like I said, Myers-Briggs type indicator, like that one actually has a charge, but there's the free versions of it that you can get. And then ONET, which I think I have a graphic in here about ONET, because ONET is part of, you have the Career One Stop. This one right here shows you, it's sponsored by the Department of Labor. And they do a lot of information on, right? Because it's the Department of Labor. They're the ones that come out with the stats of what's the job, unemployment rate, things like that. They have a lot of information, and they put it together in these Career One Stop. Now, any of you who have used maybe unemployment centers, they're really Career One Stops is what they're called now. Instead of unemployment center, they'll have actual career centers where you can go in, you can use their computers, you can like go to their workshops, things like that. Now, right now it's a little bit weird, of course, with COVID, things being closed, it's all virtual, but I think they're doing a lot of virtual sessions and stuff too. And one day it will be opening up. So I maintain optimism with that. So this just, you can see here, there's the self-assessments. You can explore careers. You can look at the self-assessments, right? Many different types of those, learn about careers, and you can learn a lot about careers. Like, what kind of careers are there in this, type, using these skills. And they have a lot of really good information there, and videos and, resources, all of that. So don't hesitate to tap into that as well. Okay. And here you can see the Occupational Outlook Handbook, which is a giant book that's put together, and of course now virtual and such as well, and it's by the Bureau of Labor Stats, and they put this is good for example, if you're thinking about federal government, working in the federal government. This can help you make sense of, it's like the series and great, that's all quite complicated, right? But there's a lot of really good information and FAQs that are on here that, you should spend some time actually just looking at that. And like, you can get a lot of really good information, but it tells you everything from like, okay, what's the educational background you need? What's the expected salary? What kinds of trainings involved? All of those kinds of things. Projected growth rate. Yep. Like they're looking at which industries are really growing, really happy, really, booming, which others are really lagging. So you can kind of look ahead too. So there's some good information on there. And then lastly, I wanted to talk very briefly, and I realize it will need to be briefly here, on the 5 bold steps to career planning and goal setting. And the reason I wanted to end with this was, we can spend as much time or as little time as we have. But this 5 bold steps is something that it's a concept that was right here. Like I pulled this actually from So Much Marketing, right? Where they talk to, it's oftentimes used in companies when they're thinking about what is your vision? Let's do our vision planning. What's the vision of our organization? and they involve everyone, right? So it's like lots of people involved in this, and like talking about what are the components of the vision, those circles around, right? What are the supports, what's going to help us get to that vision? What's the challenges, right? And then the bold steps are, how do you get there, right? What do you need to do to get there? But this is actually a model that has been adapted for career planning and goal setting. So for example, how I've used it in the past, and you can use it career-wise, related to this as well. But you could have your vision. What is your vision of yourself? Who are you trying to be, right? So a healthy, or whatever, it could be like the word health is in there, right? That's one of your values. So what you do, before I get to that, I'm sorry, on the bottom, and it doesn't show in this graphic, but below the bold steps, there's like grass, right? And that's values. And that's where you transfer those values that you identified in the earlier exercise that we did, the 32 goals or 16 goals in our case, where you had those, what were the ones that were repeated, and those are your values, core values. So transfer those core values to the bottom. So if you print this out, and then you just put the values on the bottom, and you write those things, health, whatever those other things, education, whatever those things are, right? You write them on the bottom, and those are what you start with. Okay, so that's my foundation values. So what is my vision of like what I want to be, where I want to be, or what I want to be doing, right? You can use it for different areas. So your vision might be, a healthy, architect, or if you knew what what you wanted to do, right? And if you don't have to put that in. You can put some of the other things in as well, right? Where you pull from those visions to create kind of this vision statement. And then you break down the parts of, for example, the values, right? So for example, with Karen, I'm just going back to her health one, for example, right? One of those circles around that are related to the vision might be, I eat 3 balanced meals per day, or whatever. That might be one of the things, right, that you do. And then another one might be related to another aspect altogether, right? And so, but this can also be used, like I said, in, career planning, right? When you're thinking about like choosing your career. Okay, so these are my values. What is my vision, my general vision, right? I want a job that fulfills my XYZ, or, whatever that statement is, however detailed you can get, that's fine. It can be general. And then filling in those different areas around those little circles, right, that are related to one of those maybe values, each of those, values that you have integrated into there, right? You might have something around that. Then when you look at, your supports, for example, right? What's going to help me in this? What are my supports? Who are my supports in attaining my goal? So it might be, your supports might be people that in the industry. It might be your mentor. It might be, LinkedIn groups, who knows, right? Whatever it is, right? It might be your COVID evacuation group that's, still going on, right? The Facebook group, whatever, your supports. On the other side, you look at, what are the challenges? What's going to keep me from getting where I want to go potentially? What is it that, and it could be, it could be anything, right? It might be, something with time wise. You have limited time between, maybe you're caring for an ailing parent, and you have limited time for those kinds of things. Factor in, right? Let's face it, right? They do. So putting it all on one page, and then having the 5 bold steps toward that vision. When you think about incrementally, what can you do first? What's the first thing that you can do to move at all toward that vision? You don't have to reach it. This is designed to be multi-step, and it doesn't have to be 5, right? It's called 5 bold steps, but what is that step that you can take to get toward that, right? And then the one, like, beyond that, what can you do? And then you can kind of keep yourself on task by looking at, I'm a visual person, so I don't know about you, but for me it really helps to see like that visual. So I used to have one of these hanging on my refrigerator, because I would see it every day, many times a day. And I would, be reminded of what I needed to do. Oh, that's right, I need to, it. So I offer that to you as an option to kind of take those visioning, those values in, and then work your own up. And for those of you who are in the mid-career relaunch boot camp, you know, we're going to be talking about, and the pre-boot camp, if you were one of those who didn't know what you wanted to do necessarily, that pre-boot camp starts on the 1st of April. And we'll be talking about more resources and more ways to kind of, you know, help you in determining, you know, what Dr. Rhonda Anstead will be talking a lot about other ways to help and activities and things like that. And there's some really good supports out there for you. So I would encourage you, you know, if you're not in that yet, you could potentially put your name on, you could email me and let me know that you're interested in being in it. It's going to meet on Thursdays, and it is important that you can commit to the entire process. So if you don't know what you want to do, it starts this Thursday, and it's Thursday from 2 to 3:45. This Thursday and a week from Thursday. So the 1st and the 8th of April. And then the regular boot camp for mid-career professionals, again, mid-career relaunch boot camp, starts the 15th of April. And the people who've already started will integrate into that group, and we'll take it from there and go for 4 weeks. So it's 4 Thursdays from 2 to 3:30 for the regular boot camp. So if you are interested, you can certainly send me an email. I think we have a wait list, but I'm not sure how long it is. And oftentimes people register and then they're unable to do it. If you are registered for that and you can't do it anymore, please email me, as we want to know to vacate your spot to free it up if you're not going to use it. So that's what I have. I want to turn it over to just questions for a few minutes if you have any. And if not, we'll go ahead and end it. But any questions from the audience on 5 bold steps or anything else? Okay, well, I think what we will do is I will go ahead and do I'm going to stop sharing here. And then I will go ahead and stop the recording, and I can answer some other questions if you do have them. But have a great evening, and take care and be in touch.